They said the Tesla was for my father. But on my 35th birthday, my sister stood in the driveway holding the keys, while I was handed a scratched, used bicycle. Before we continue, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you more true-to-life stories of family, betrayal, and silent revenge. My name is Quinn, I'm 35 years old and I work as a software engineer. Most days my life is about clean code, system reliability, and fixing bugs at ungodly hours. But today was supposed to be different. Today was supposed to be a celebration. My birthday. The living room smelled like cake and wrapping paper. Laughter bounced off the walls. And then came the moment I'll never forget. My parents let us outside, where a brand new Tesla Model Y gleamed in the driveway, a massive red bow strapped across its hood like a crown. My younger sister, Elena, squealed as they pressed the key card into her perfectly manicured hand. "For your new clients," Mom said proudly. "They'll expect a certain image. This car will set the right impression." I stood there with a smile that felt stitched onto my face, waiting. Because just last month Mom had suggested we buy a car for Dad, something practical and safe. I had pulled from my own savings to help. The paperwork, the registration, everything was under my name. It wasn't charity, it was responsibility. Or so I believed. Then my turn. My father wheeled out a bicycle. Secondhand, its frame scratched, the seat cover ripped. "For your health," he said with a laugh. "You're always so disciplined, Quinn. You'll make this work." I laughed too, but it cracked in my throat. The bicycle cost less than one of Elena's handbags. The irony stung deeper than I wanted to admit. Flashbacks hit me in rapid frames. Elena at 12 unwrapping a MacBook Pro while I got a discount calculator for school. Elena's 16th birthday. A designer dress and a camera while I got socks. "You're the practical one," Dad always said. "You don't need much." At the party, Elena leaned close, her perfume sharp, her smile sharper. "Don't worry, sis," she whispered. "You can borrow the Tesla whenever you want. Just don't scratch it." That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not anger, not even sadness. Something colder, heavier. The realization that all these years, I had been the safety net while she was the showpiece. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I even helped clear the dishes that night. But as midnight crept past, I stood in my childhood bedroom, staring at the cracked ceiling I once traced with my fingers when I dreamed of leaving. I packed silently, my laptop, my documents, a few clothes. And one thing more, the Tesla's key card. Because the truth was simple. It wasn't a gift for Elena. It was mine. Bought with my money, registered in my name. At 12:43 a.m., I rolled my suitcase to the door. No one stirred. My father's snores rattled down the hallway. My mother's night lamp glowed faintly. Elena's laughter still echoed in my ears from earlier that evening, when she had posed beside her car for Instagram. I placed my house key on the counter. Cold metal, years of resentment attached. Then I stepped into the night air, slid into the Tesla's leather seat and pressed the brake. The dashboard lit up with my account details. My car. My name. My choice. As I pulled away from the house, the bicycle leaned against the garage wall like a cruel joke, its wheels slowly spinning in the wind. By the time the clock struck 1 a.m., my phone lit up. Mom's name first, then Dad's, then Elena's. 3 missed calls. 3 voicemails. 1 message: "Bring the car back immediately or we'll report it stolen." The road was empty, but my phone wouldn't shut up. 3 rings for guilt, 3 for control, and 1 last buzz that promised war. Tonight, proof was the only thing keeping me steady as I backed the Tesla out of my parents' driveway and watched the porch light shrink in the rear camera. The street was slick with a thin film of winter mist, the kind that softens the world until you almost forgive it. I didn't forgive anything. I just drove. The first wave of calls hit as I turned onto the main road. Mom, Dad, Elena. Names I knew as well as my own, flashing like hazard lights across the dash. I let them roll to voicemail. When I muted notifications, the silence felt like oxygen. At the first red light, I tapped the Tesla screen. Profile. Quinn. My phone connected instantly. Pin to drive on. Key card recognized. Under locks, I removed every device except my own. Someone had nicknamed the car Elena's ride in the app. I changed it to Boundary and exhaled. The house key I'd left on the kitchen counter burned in my memory. Years of being the responsible one, condensed into that cold piece of metal. You'll make this work, Dad had said about the bicycle, like thrift was a virtue only when it came to me. The highway unfurled, a black ribbon, empty and endless. With every mile marker, memories came unspooled. Elena at 12 with a brand new laptop, me at 13 with a clearance bin calculator. Elena's 16th, a camera and dress, me with socks for school. You're practical, Quinn. You don't need much. Right. Except respect. My phone vibrated again. A text from Dad lit the screen. Dad, bring the car back immediately or we'll report it stolen. Don't make this worse than it already is. I stared at the words until the road hummed a warning through the steering wheel. The message wasn't about a car. It was about control. 10 minutes later, I pulled into a charging station off the interstate. The place glowed soft blue beneath aluminum canopies, a cathedral for electric insomniacs. A trucker sipped coffee by the convenience store. A student sat cross-legged on a curb, laptop open, eyes exhausted. The charger latched with a solid click and the numbers began to climb. I opened files, personal vehicles, Tesla / on my phone. There it was. Invoice.pdf, registration.pdf, insurance.pdf, time-stamped, verified, paid from my account. A copy of the email chain where Mom had written, "Let's get something safe for your father. Can you cover the payment for now? We'll sort it out." We never sorted it out. We converted it into a photo op for Elena. The convenience store smelled like burnt coffee and dish soap. I bought a bottle of water and stared at my reflection in the freezer door. Pale, steady-eyed, unfamiliar. On my way out, my phone rang again. Not family. Where are you? Dirya's voice spilled warmth into the cold night. College friend, the kind who shows up with soup and a socket wrench. Somewhere between the past and the California border, I said. Charging. Drive here, she said, not a suggestion. I'll make up the couch. Sleep, then we figure out work, housing, everything. You don't have to muscle through alone. The word alone lodged in my chest. I had built my life on it. Thanks. Text me your location when you stop. And Quinn. Yeah. You're not stealing a car. You're taking back what you already paid for. The line clicked off. I watched the percentage climb to 78%, then 82%. I unplugged, coiled the cable with careful hands and slid back behind the wheel. As the highway took me south, I set the center screen to Sentry mode. On and dashcam. Autosave on honk. If Dad wanted a story for the police, I wanted a record for the truth. The first hint of dawn smudged the horizon. I turned the music off. The silence felt like a decision. A new text from Mom appeared when I reached for my water. My blood pressure is spiking because of you. Do you want that on your conscience? Bring the car back and stop this childishness. I thumbed the side button and let the screen go black. For 35 years, my feelings had been a family utility, drawn down to power everyone else's comfort. Not tonight. An exit sign flashed past and with it a memory. The dealership lot under yellow lights, the night everything was signed. It's just faster if it's under one name, Mom had said. You'll keep the paperwork, your father will drive it. We'll celebrate next month when your sister's new job starts. The next month, the bow was read, the photographer was hired, and the Baba Ison story morphed into Elena deserves a good start. My money, my name, Elena's keys. When I'd hesitated, Dad had squeezed my shoulder. Don't be petty, Quinn. Be proud of your sister. Tonight the squeeze was gone. The bruise remained. The road narrowed through a stand of pines. The world smelled like sap and cold. The bike they'd given me sat in my trunk of thoughts, mocking and mute. I pictured it cleaned and tuned by my own hands, used on my terms and no one else's. A tiny spark of defiance lit. My phone chimed, this time Elena. Elena, where are you with my car? I have a client shoot at 10. You're being cruel. Just bring it back. Please. My core. I let the phrase drift to the passenger side floor mat with the crumbs and dust. I didn't reply. Instead, I dictated a quick note and emailed it to myself with the subject line chain of custody, vehicle. Asterisk left parents' house 12:43 a.m. VIN, reg in my name, policy in my name. Photos attached of docs. Messages archived. Notifying friend of route. Sentry on. I CC'd Dirya and attached the PDFs. Timestamps were little anchors in deep water. Engineers trust logs. Tonight I only trusted evidence. A cluster of headlights emerged behind me then blazed past. Just another car. Still my heart climbed my throat. The brain remembers what the body doesn't want to. Raised voices, slammed doors, that tiny pinprick after the word stolen. At the next rest stop, I washed my face in a sink that smelled like metal. A woman in a reflective vest dabbed her eyes in the next mirror and smiled at me with the cracked grace of someone surviving a long shift. Blood makes you related. Love and respect make you family, I heard in my head, a phrase I'd learned too late but exactly on time. Back on the road, the sky softened to pewter. I punched Dirya's address into the nav arrival. 6:22 a.m. My body ached, but the ache made sense. It came from movement, not from bracing. The next text from Dad came with a photo of the family group chat. My name highlighted in a string of messages, all caps, exclamation marks. Dad, last warning. If the Tesla isn't back in our driveway in 1 hour, I'm filing a police report. You will not embarrass this family. There it was again, this family which had always meant everyone but me. I pulled off onto the shoulder and put the car in park. The highway hissed softly, a sleeping animal. I opened the camera roll and photographed each page of the invoice, the registration, the insurance. I filmed a 30-second clip panning across the dash with my profile on screen, the VIN clearly framed, the date and time visible. Then I placed the phone on the console and watched the red recording light blink out. When I lifted my gaze, my reflection stared back from the dark glass of the window. I didn't look like a thief. I looked like someone who had finally learned the difference between staying quiet and staying safe. The phone pulsed in my hand. Another message, colder this time. Dad, I'm going to the station now. I pulled into Dirya's driveway with my entire life compressed into one suitcase and a folder of digital evidence. The Tesla hummed to silence, its screen reflecting my pale, sleepless face. Dirya met me at the door in slippers and an oversized hoodie, steaming mug in hand. She didn't ask questions. She just hugged me. For the first time in hours, my body stopped bracing for impact. Inside, I dropped my suitcase against the wall. The smell of coffee wrapped around me like safety. Dirya pressed a mug into my hands and said simply, shower, sleep, then we'll talk. I obeyed. My muscles trembled under the hot water, exhaustion and adrenaline colliding until I nearly collapsed against the tiles. When I finally curled onto her couch under a borrowed blanket, I slept like I hadn't since college. When I woke, sunlight angled through the blinds. The Tesla key card lay on the coffee table beside my laptop, its matte surface daring me to decide what it meant. I opened my email. My inbox had flooded. 24 new messages, all family. You're humiliating us. Return the car before the neighbors notice. Dad, police report filed. Your childishness has consequences. Elena, I needed that car today. You ruined my shoot. Why do you always have to be jealous? I stared at the words until my chest tightened. Then I archived them all. Out of sight, not out of existence, but out of power. The next step was survival. I opened Slack and drafted a message to my manager. Hi, I'd like to request a transfer to the San Francisco office. Remote onboarding possible, relocation immediate. All performance data attached. My finger hovered over send. Doubt whispered, this is reckless. This is dramatic. What if you're overreacting? But another voice, new, quieter, stronger, answered, what if this is finally the right reaction? I pressed send. 2 hours later, a reply arrived. Approved. Start Monday. HR will handle relocation paperwork. Congratulations, Quinn. Just like that. No begging, no manipulation, no guilt. Just recognition of my work. I sat frozen, coffee cooling in my hand as the weight of 35 years cracked open. Maybe I'd always been capable. Maybe that was exactly why they took me for granted. Dirya leaned against the doorframe, smiling at my stunned face. See? New city, new life. That evening, we drove to a small apartment building in the Mission District. A friend of hers managed the place and had a vacancy. It was tiny, 650 square feet, kitchenette barely wide enough for a fridge, but the windows faced west. Sunlight spilled across bare hardwood floors, and for the first time, I imagined space that belonged only to me. I signed the lease before hesitation could catch up. The Tesla sat downstairs, its glossy surface reflecting the neon of the corner bodega. I thought of the bicycle back at my parents' house, leaning against the garage wall. A symbol of every excuse they had ever made. You're practical. You don't need much. Your sister requires more. But here in this city, the bicycle lost its power. I decided I'd buy a new one. Not secondhand, not handed down. One I chose. For me. Days blurred into a rhythm. Unpack, code, sleep. At work, I submitted a proposal to refactor our payment microservices. During stress tests, latency dropped by 38%. My PM emailed, "Brilliant. You just saved us a quarter's worth of costs." For once, the praise landed without condition. At night, though, the pressure returned. Voicemails piled up. "Dad, we'll tell the company you stole from us." My health is declining because of you." "Elena, how could you betray family like this?" I saved them, each one a digital scar, and labeled the folder evidence. Gaslighting. A week later, Dirya pushed me into a therapist's office. Dr. Astley, calm and unhurried, asked me to name what I had carried all these years. "Favoritism," I whispered. "Gaslighting. Conditional love." She nodded as if I'd finally set a heavy box on the floor. "And how did it make you feel?" I laughed bitterly. Like I was worth a used bicycle. The words broke something open inside me. By the end of that session, I had homework. Document boundaries. What I would and would not accept. I left the office with a notebook half filled already. No returning calls under threats. No guilt-tripping about health or reputation. Respect or distance. Simple lines, but they felt like armor. That night, as I scrolled through Tesla's app, a notification flashed. Access request from Dad's account. They were still trying to seize control remotely. I denied it and locked the car to my profile alone. Evidence, therapy, boundaries. A system reboot. The next morning, my inbox chimed with a single subject line from Dad. "Dinner. Elena's launch party. Bring the car." Attached was a PDF of a formal invitation, my name printed in bold at the top. My hands shook as I read the note beneath. This time, no drama. "We're a family. Don't embarrass us." I closed my laptop slowly, heart pounding. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The truth doesn't shout. It waits in files and receipts, silent and undeniable. I spread the documents across my kitchen table, each page a tile in a mosaic of betrayal. The invoice stamped with my account number. The registration, my name printed in bold. The insurance policy, my signature still sharp at the bottom. All of it proof that the Tesla wasn't theirs to gift. Mom's text still echoed in my head. "It was for your father, then Elena needed it." A story rewritten like it was a simple find and replace, as if money and memory were both editable. I compiled everything into a single folder. Vehicle under CSASH. Screenshots of texts, PDFs of contracts, even the dealership email where Mom had promised to sort it out. I exported voice recordings of their calls, the ones where Dad threatened to report the car stolen. Truth crystallized into hard evidence, something they couldn't spin. Therapy had taught me to name the patterns. Financial favoritism, Dad's department. Emotional manipulation, Mom's specialty. Elena, the centerpiece, glittering at the expense of my silence. For decades, they built the perfect system. One parent holding the purse, the other tugging the heartstrings. And me, the responsible one, trapped between ledger and guilt. Now I had proof. Work became my refuge. In the office, the refactored microservice hummed at 38% faster response time, and my manager's praise rang through the open plan floor. No one there knew about bicycles or bows, just performance metrics and clean code. For once, I wasn't invisible. But the messages kept coming. "Dad's latest read, we'll make this public. People will believe us, not you." I looked at the USB drive on my desk. Every document encrypted, backed up. If they wanted a war of perception, I was ready for a war of facts. When the dinner invitation arrived for Elena's launch party, it wasn't a request. It was a command dressed in gold script. My name inked neatly onto the seating chart they'd attached, placed between my parents, directly across from Elena. A tableau of control. The therapist's voice returned. "Boundaries are messages. If you attend, go on your terms." I closed the invitation, slid the folder of evidence into my bag, and whispered to the empty room, "On my terms, then." The night of the event, as I stood before the mirror, smoothing the lines of a midnight blue dress that clung with quiet power, my phone vibrated. Dad's message. "If you bring up the car tonight, don't bother coming home again." I smiled at my reflection. Exactly. Sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't anger. It's calm clarity laid out in front of everyone. The restaurant buzzed with voices and clinking glasses, the kind of curated energy my parents loved. Elena's launch party had all the trappings: velvet drapes, rented lights, a photographer weaving between tables capturing the family's perfect moment. I walked in, spine straight, heels clicking against the polished floor. My parents turned, their smiles too wide, too rehearsed. Elena stood at the center like a crowned queen, her hand resting on the shoulder of the Tesla bow that still lived in her Instagram feed. I didn't join them immediately. Instead, I set my leather bag on the table and slid into my assigned seat. When the waiter poured champagne, I asked for water. The tension thickened instantly. Dad cleared his throat, leaning in. "We're here to celebrate, Quinn. Don't ruin this for your sister." Mom added quickly, "No need for unpleasantness. Let's just be a family tonight." The word family tasted sour. I pulled the folder from my bag and placed it on the white linen tablecloth. Pages fanned across crystal glasses and polished cutlery. Receipts, registration, insurance. The air shifted. Conversations at nearby tables faltered. "This," I said evenly, "is proof the Tesla is mine. Paid with my money, registered in my name. Every text, every signature, every threat you've sent, documented." Elena's face paled under her makeup. She glanced at Mom, then Dad. "You told me." Her voice trailed into silence. Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't do this here." I kept my voice steady. "I didn't do this. You did, the moment you tried to rewrite the truth." Elena's facade cracked. "I needed it for work. My clients." I cut her off softly. "Your work isn't my burden to fund. My career never mattered to you, only that I could carry everyone else." The waiter hovered nervously, unsure whether to clear plates or retreat. Around us, whispers spread. Faces turned. For once, the story wasn't theirs to control. Dad slammed his palm on the table, rattling the glasses. "You think documents mean anything? We're family. That car belongs with us." I lifted the key card between two fingers, its black surface gleaming under the chandelier. "Then call the police. Tell them you reported your daughter for stealing her own property. Let's see how that headline plays." The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Elena's eyes brimmed with something new, fear, maybe realization. "You could have told me," she whispered. "I didn't know you paid for it." I met her gaze. "You never asked." The room held its breath. My mother's eyes shone with unshed tears, her hand trembling against her wine glass. She looked smaller than I remembered, her power reduced to fragility. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to rescue her. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. The screen lit up with a single line. "We need to talk privately. Library. Now." I looked toward the far end of the room, where a heavy oak door stood half open, shadows pooling beyond it. And there, waiting, was my father's silhouette. The library door felt heavier than it should have, as if 35 years of silence had been nailed to the wood. I pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and polish. My father paced by the fireplace, shoulders tight, bourbon in hand. My mother sat stiff-backed in a velvet chair, tissues clutched like props. Elena stood near the window, her dress shimmering but her eyes restless. Dad gestured to the empty chair facing them. "Sit. We're settling this now." I stayed standing. "Then say what you need to say." He began with numbers. "I lost my job 3 months ago. Your mother's health is fragile. We're selling the house. This family is unraveling, and it started when you walked out with that car." There it was, the perfect trifecta: financial collapse, health crisis, guilt. For years, those cards had pulled me back into line. Tonight, they landed like stones skipping uselessly across water. "I'm sorry for your job," I said calmly. "And I'm glad Mom is getting help. But those are not debts I owe." Elena stepped forward, voice shaking. "I didn't know you paid for it, Quinn. They told me it was Dad's gift, then said it made sense for me to have it. I believed them." Her words trembled, and for once I saw the child underneath the crown, shaped, spoiled, and just as trapped. I opened my bag and laid a small leather album on the table. Photos slid into the light. Birthdays, graduations, Christmas mornings. In every frame, the pattern screamed. Elena with ponies, cameras, bows. Me with dollar bin cakes, hand-me-downs, polite smiles. Dad's face flushed crimson. "You're exaggerating." I pulled a folder next. My student loan statements, $67,000 still unpaid. Then Elena's tuition receipts. Every semester funded, including her year abroad to find herself. Mom's voice cracked. We thought you'd manage. You always did. I looked straight at her. Being capable doesn't mean I deserved less love. Less support. Less family. The room fell silent except for the tick of the clock on the mantel. Finally, I set the plastic piggy bank on the table. Its hollow thud echoed like a gavel. I twisted the stopper and crisp $2 bills spilled across the wood. One for every week since I left. Dad stared confused. What's this supposed to mean? That was your definition of my worth, I said. $2. I kept count. Not as punishment but as proof. Proof that I learned what you never taught me. My value doesn't come from your approval. Elena picked up a bill, running it between her fingers. I never realized how it looked. I never asked what it cost you. Her voice cracked, but I didn't rush to comfort her. Compassion without rescue, that was the line I had drawn. I stood, gathering my evidence back into the bag but leaving the piggy bank behind. If reconciliation ever happens, it will be under two conditions: family therapy and respect for my boundaries. Anything less is nothing. Mom's tears spilled genuine this time. Dad opened his mouth to argue, but she placed a trembling hand on his arm. We'll do it, she whispered. If that's what it takes. I nodded once. Then maybe there's a future. But tonight I have a seat waiting out there. My place. On my terms. When I stepped back into the hall, voices from the party washed over me. Laughter, glasses clinking, the careless joy of people who hadn't lived my history. I inhaled deeply. The weight I'd carried for decades lifted, replaced by something steadier. I wasn't leaving empty anymore. Months later, Christmas morning sunlight poured across the hardwood floors of my San Francisco apartment. Friends crowded around a table I bought myself, laughter genuine, not rehearsed. Pottery I'd shaped with my own hands lined the shelves. On the mantel sat the piggy bank, now filled not with resentment but with bills I added each week as a reminder. Value isn't granted, it's claimed. Elliot, his hand warm against mine, raised a glass. To Quinn, who builds structures strong enough to stand and finally built one for herself. I smiled, the kind that came from the bones outward. The past hadn't vanished. But I had driven away, and this time I never looked back.